Thank you. Good morning and welcome to Kentucky's Infinite Campus mid-year training. Today we've got 4 very good sessions ready for you to kind of go over those. We've got 2 that Infinite Campus will join us for, and then we also have 2 that KDE staff will be providing to you. We'll follow that up by just a wrap up, some KDE updates that we normally do as supplemental data. They're on the end of the slide deck. You should have received, if you registered, an email from Linda Burton that has a link to the slides. If you did not receive that, or if you're watching this after the fact and you'd like a copy of the slides, you can reach out to KDE Data Request at education.ky.gov and ask for those slides. So we'd be glad to get those to you. We are using the Go Soapbox application today for questions. And if you've not already, go ahead and open that up at app.gosoapbox.com. And the access code is KDE data. And once you get there, you should see a screen that just has like a little bit of information at the top and then a plus sign under the social Q&A. If you have a question, enter the questions there. Just click that plus button and you will enter the question in there. If you don't plan on answering questions, it's still good actually to log into that site because you can see what other questions are being asked. And many times the presenters or one of the moderators that are helping us out today will be in that application, and they will go ahead and be putting the answers into the question so you can see the answers as we go along. We'll break into some of the presentations as the presenter requests, or follow up the end of presentation with questions and answers that we'll bring those to the presenters before the training ends, if time allows. If not, we'll add the questions, and that Q&A will be posted. We hope you've encouraged others to participate today. We will start each of our sessions on time. That allows people to come in to the training just for maybe one session of interest versus having to feel like they've got to stay all day to catch what they need. The training, if you're in the training and you think, gosh, I wish I had invited so-and-so, it will be recorded. So the recordings will be posted and you can actually share that information with others after the fact. If you've if you're interested in ELA credit and you've already registered, congratulations. You've already taken the first step. You've got, that's the first step into getting ELA credit. After the session's over, you will get a survey. And once you take the survey, we appreciate all your comments, and that's just the confirmation of your attendance. Then at that point, we will send you the ELA credit. Usually it takes about a week to get that out. We do ask that you check your junk mail, things like that, before deciding you haven't gotten it when you should have. So do look for that ELA credit coming out after the fact. So please make sure that you have, again, registered. You look for the survey, usually goes out after the training's completed, and then follow up with the ELA certificate in about a week. So that'll take care of all that. Today, our first session, I'll tell you, I am really excited about this session. Some of you know that we have dedicated some of our ESSER funds that we were able to get towards improving the district services. We were able to do that with campus learning, with online registration, and fund those tools for districts using that funds. The other funds you hadn't seen as much about is the other use of funds that you hadn't seen so much about so far is in the Campus Analytics Suite. You know that Kentucky partnered with Infinite Campus early on to develop the early warning system, and it just continues to be a better and better system. So, but this is going to take the early warning data to the next level. A lot of that same data that's used to get to the early warning indicators is now going to be available in data visualizations. So the data visualizations are and the analytics that will be available, these first ones are the first to come out. You will actually see them in the site tomorrow, in the live site tomorrow. With the last, we'll take the, I think it's 2303 tonight. I sent a message out earlier today about that. It includes this insights. So if you go looking for it during Matthew's training, it's not there. But if you look tomorrow, you should see it. We do want you to, make sure that the people that need access to that you're letting them know about it, and you're also giving them the access they need. So I'm as excited as you are to see what Matthew has to show us today, and I am going to turn this over to you. Thank you for joining us, Matthew.
Thanks, Dee Dee. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to take control of the presentation here because I'm selfish that way and I want to own everything. So you should all be now seeing my slides. I'm going to do a bit of a blended presentation here. So there's going to be some stuff in slides and then some of it will be live demo. And we're going to be talking about as Dee Dee mentioned, a new offering that's coming into the system called Early Warning Insights. And I'll go through a bit about that. But before we do, just a quick little bit about me, because some of y'all might recognize me or have heard my voice before. My name is Matthew Shaw. I'm an analyst with the data science team here at Infinite Campus. Been here for about 11 years. And if I sound familiar, even though you've never talked to data science, it's because for the first 6 years here at campus, I was a training specialist on the ICU. So a lot of those Infinite Campus University sessions, in-person mastering sessions, all of those things, I was pretty directly involved with. So if we've met before, hello again. If not, welcome. I'm also, because of the nature of the weather here in Minnesota and the obscene amount of snow that we've received, I've become an expert at amateur driveway snow removal. For scale, that pile behind is mine. It's in front of my house. The blue house in the background is mine. I'm 6'1". That pile is well over 7 feet. And we are in February. March is historically our snowiest month. So this is going to be an interesting and exciting year. It's gotten to the point where I can't blow snow over the pile anymore. So all I can really do is make my driveway narrower and narrower. It's a fun time to live in Minnesota. So today, now you know a little bit about me, we're going to be going through early warning insights. And to make this conversation make sense, because I know early warning as a tool may or may not be, let's say, fully conversationally comfortable yet. We're going to talk a little bit about what early warning actually is, what it does, just a real quick, brief overview to get us all on the same page, and then why the Insights project came to be and what it's looking to do. And then we're going to look at the first round of available visualizations. And I want to be very specific about that. This is an ongoing development effort. So what I'm going to show you today are, I believe, 6, 7, 9 new visualizations that we're adding to the product. We will be adding incrementally more as we go. The target end result is probably about 24, so 24 of these. And the reason that we're doing this is to support a dashboard that will come out at the very end of this project. So initially, we're giving you the core reports that you can start using today, give us feedback on what you like, what you don't, and then eventually those will all compress into a dashboard that you can configure and control. It's really cool stuff. I'll talk you through it. So we'll look at what's out of the box, and then we'll talk about some of the options that you have to tailor and customize those to your own use within your district. So first and foremost, early warning. Early warning is, to kind of simplify things, it's a dashboard, and it uses machine learning and some fairly complicated algorithms to try to interpret a student's progress towards graduation or persistence towards graduation. Now, this isn't a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. It's kind of a clever way that it does it, but it looks at a few different factors for your student, and it looks at them in the context of what it knows about that particular student to try to give an accurate representation of whether their current pathway will lead them to successfully graduating or not. It's part of the counseling module in Campus today. So if you've not seen it, it should be in your index. For those of you with rights, under Student Info Counseling, you'll see an early warning piece. I'll show you some of what that looks like. All of that fancy algorithm and math that goes through will create something known as a grad score. This is a numeric value between 50 and 150. And the basic understanding of this is the lower the score, the greater the risk. So if you have students who are scoring a grad score up in the 140s, 150s, those students are almost definitely going to graduate from what we can tell. Students who are down below about that 100 or so mark, that's where we're starting to get into that at-risk category. Grad score is broken up into 4 different contributing factors. So, and these are independently and analyzed for each student. So attendance, that was pretty obvious. Students not attending class, it's very hard to educate them. Behavior, curriculum, so their actual classroom performance, and then stability. Stability has to do with census data. So things like how often they've moved, family structure, all of those factor in to this particular student. And what that does in the system is it leads to an interpretation of the system that looks something like this. So over years, we calculate and look at how those factors have changed for this particular student to calculate this overall likelihood to graduation or grad score. So grad score in this particular visual is the black line. All of the independent variables are shown in the colored lines behind. So at the student level, this information is great. You can see what's happening with this particular student. At the cohort or grade level or watch list level, that same information gets compressed up to show you this info for a group of students. And then at the school or district level, that information gets compressed further to give you this sort of heat map and this distribution graph. Typically, for most of our districts that we've been working with, anything below about that 100 is where we start getting a little bit concerned. And then down in the lower reaches, the kind of 50 to 70 is where we're considered really, really concerned. But really, as we're looking at it, kind of that 50 to 100 is that targeted at-risk area. And that's where we're starting with the Insights project. The goal of Insights was to answer the question of, well, what happens next? When you're looking at early warning from this level, and we're looking at counts of students and how many students are falling into these groups, how many kids might be on a watch list, there's still that opportunity for students to get lost in the shuffle. So what we're trying to do with this project is work on data visualizations that will allow you to look into the specific contributing factors to early warning to those students who are already identified as at risk and say, where can we impact those students? How can we assist to getting them back on track in a meaningful way? Meaning, where can we address groups of those students and find common factors that we can target interventions for within our school, things of that nature. So that's what this project is meant to do. It's trying to help you find ways to come in to work with those kids without having to sort through at the student level. Now, eventually, as I mentioned, all of that is going to compress into a dashboard. The goal design of this is that as a user, you will be able to choose 4 to 6 of these visualizations from the group of about 24 that we're building and place them on your own dashboard with your own options. So if there are specific assessments that you're looking at or specific departments within your school that you're responsible for, or types of attendance or behavior that you're looking for, you'll be able to configure those and have your customized dashboard for those students who are already at risk. So it's a targeted intervention platform for early warning. Now, we're not there yet. That's going to be, or roughly it's targeted for this summer, so start of next school year. Where we are right now on this project roadmap is right here. So in Campus 2303, as Dee Dee mentioned, we released the initial set of these visualizations. And this is a continuous improvement sort of thing. So there have already been a few little tweaks and adjustments and changes to these. The version you're going to see today is the 2307 version of these. And as we get more feedback from our users, as we start looking at more things and creating more of these, more options are going to show, and we'll have additional things coming into this. So right now, where we are is primarily focused on assessments and classroom performance. So the initial visualizations are going to be really in that world, which ties to the curriculum aspect of early warning. So that one particular score. So everything you're about to see and all the things we're going to show you takes into account the student's curriculum score and is looking specifically for students who have a curriculum early warning score between 50 and 100. The students who are not where we'd want them to be in the context of that student in order to help them lead towards graduation. Okay, let's talk about the assessment ones. There are 2 different assessment visualizations that I'm going to show you and walk through. These are the assessments by proficiency and students by assessment proficiency. Now, this is looking at result statuses for assessments. When we're looking at visualizations and trying to come up with analytical data, the place where analytics struggles is when you have a wide variety of different options. So we've tried to target these to an initial offering set. And again, we can adjust these, we can come up with and add additional to these as we go. But initially, we're looking at assessments based on the result status that's tied to that assessment. So the achievement level that the student has reached. And we have some options we can show for that. With assessments by proficiency, this is going to be viewed from the perspective of the assessment itself. So it's looking at a particular test that was offered, and it's counting how many students took that test and received a specific result status. So passed, failed, advanced, proficient, however you may have those configured within your particular site. Students by assessment proficiency flips that on its head and looks instead at the students specifically and how many assessments they have reached a particular result for. So this one student, here's are the 3 tests that he struggled with or did very, very well on. This is not only meant to find opportunities where students aren't performing, it's also meant to say these are students who are considered at risk, but are doing very, very well on a specific thing. So what is it that's unique about that thing that's reaching these students? What method is that teacher using? What options, or where did we really hit an aha moment for them? It really will allow you to see both. I'll show you that. And specifically, I'm going to show you that right now. So in this, in Canvas, as of tomorrow, you're going to have a new option showing up on your index called Insights. This contains the reports that were previously found under Reporting Ad Hoc Data Analysis, as well as the new things that we've added to the product for this release. So here on the index in the new look, it's going to be shown as Insights. In the old look, it's also called Insights, but you're going to find it down at the bottom of the list instead of right here in the middle, just because of the way the 2 different navigation structures format and sort things. Under Insights, you'll see subcategories of items. Now, the ones that we've added for this release are the 2 that you'll find under Assessments, and then the 7 that you're going to find under Classroom Performance. The options that are shown here under Attendance and Stability, these are the previously released earlier version reports. These will be replaced as we work through this product with this style of visualization. So all of the functionality you currently have in those 3 reports is going to be maintained. We're just going to change up the delivery mechanism for it a little bit. Because we're talking about the assessments to start off with, that's where I'm going to start. So under Insights, Assessments, we have Assessment by Proficiency and Students by Assessment Proficiency. Now, before I click on this, I do want to reassure you, this is a demo site. That's both a good and a bad thing as somebody who's demonstrating this, because this is scrambled data, which means the students that are in this site don't exist, the schools don't exist. There's no concern about PII or FERPL or anything like that. None of these kids are real outside of somebody's imagination. It also can mean that some of this data is not overly realistic in the way that it's presented. So if you see some odd things in here, that's partially because the demo site has some randomization and some scrambling happening, and that can cause the data to malform occasionally. So just heads up on that. So I'm going to come in here to Insights Assessments. We're going to go into Assessments by Proficiency, and the system is going to load. Now, if this looks familiar to you, that means that you've spent a little bit of time in Campus's Pivot Designer, which is a tool that's found under ad hoc reporting here on the index and allows you to build grids or pivot tables of students and build your own charts related to those. We've further enhanced Pivot Designer for this update to include early warning data. This version of it is a completely customized version of the Pivot Designer that uses it as the display layer, but optimizes the queries that are going on in the background and makes some more innovative decisions that you can't make with the out-of-the-box tool. So it looks the same, but it opens up within Campus, and it's got some tweaks and adjustments to it. Now, when we're looking at assessments, obviously, if you're thinking about your students and their entire career within your districts, you have a wide variety of different marking points where we take assessments for students throughout their career. As a system like this will kind of struggle with that because that's a ton of data. What we've done initially is we've filtered this down to the scores that were received for the previous 2 years based on the calendar that you have selected. So if I'm in the 22-23 calendar of my school, it's going to look at any score that was entered within this calendar year and the summer previously. So it's going back a bit and it's looking at that data to try to target this down to just what's happening right now. Because the stuff that's happened previously, we've already dealt with that. We're more interested in where are they today. Now, those filters can absolutely be removed. And I'll show you how you can do that here in a moment. But out of the box, that's what this data is looking for. And it takes my assessments in Assessment by Proficiency, and it stacks those out based on result code. And what it's giving me here is a count of students. So how many students scored within each block? Now, I know what some of you are wanting to ask right now, so I'll just answer it. There is not currently in this tool a method to change the colors of these blocks. We are hoping to, let's say, bend the system to allow us to do that as part of this development effort. So we're not there yet. We're working with the company that actually creates this product to see where we can allow for some direct customizations so that you can change things so that things like do not meet are not shaded in a nice light blue color and are more alarming. So you can set your own conditional formatting for that. That's where we're hoping to get right now today. Those colors are set by the interface, and it's not something that we can currently change. As a user looking at this, without making any other changes to it, I can see specific counts of how many students scored each result. And if I want to, I can drill into those results by either right-clicking and selecting drill through or double-clicking on any one of these cells. What that will do is bring up a sub-report that's going to show me the details of all of the students that took this particular test, what score, date they entered, so when did they actually take the test, the student's name, the raw score if it's entered, the scale score if it's entered, the result code, and result label. So those 4 items are going to show up here by default for any student who falls within that group. So this is looking at the MDS literacy assessment, and it's looking specifically at the section of the column for kids who did not meet our expectations. So this is the list of those 22 students that we potentially could target an intervention for related to literacy because they've scored on our screener to say that there was an issue. Now, there are some additional things that the FlexMonster, or rather Pivot Designer tool, allows you to do. We're drilling into these students. We currently don't have that functionality here that allows you to click on the student and go directly to their records. That's something that we're developing and hoping to be able to offer to you at the end point of this. Initially where we are, though, that's still a work in progress. Now I can, with this report, I can make some changes. We're going to talk about filtering a little bit later, but if this is not a visualization or view that I like, there are additional charts that we have, different options for how you want to show this data. So you can tweak and adjust these if there's a way to view it that makes a little bit more sense to you. As the development of this tool increases, these settings and this particular user customization of the report is going to allow you to be saved so that this will be my version of this every time I go to it. And if I compress this to the dashboard, this is the version that we'll see. Initially, though, out of the box, it's going to come and look something like this. So this is the assessments by proficiency. So it's that count based on the test, and it's counting the students. The alternate version of that is students by assessment proficiency. Now this is going to go through and show you individual students and look at the tests that they've taken and count the number of times they've received particular results. So looking at this across all of my kids, again, it's a demo site. Almost all of my students have taken the same number of tests, but I can see the specific color blocks and bars that are growing for them. I can change these again to whichever view that I like. So if I wanted to go pie chart, I could look at all of the students who are approaching or who do not meet my expectations, and it's going to show me how many tests they had under that category. So Everett Sawyer had 3 different tests where his result did not meet expectations. If I double click on that, I'll see what those tests are and all of the score information about that student. Again, you're going to have a much wider set. Here, my sample site is a little bit limited in the data that's presented. Initial filters and things that are placed in this, in any one of these reports, in any one of these visualizations, you have this little icon that's going to show up in the top. This is your filtering icon and allows you to change what we decided were the default options. Anything that you see that's an item that has that little symbol next to it has a default option set. So as I mentioned, we are filtering these to students who have an early warning curriculum score between 50 and 100. So 100 is set, and also these options below. If you wanted to open this up to every single student in the school, regardless of early warning status, all you have to do is hit select all and apply. And this whole thing is going to change. And now you're looking at the entire pool of students within the whole school. Same thing with assessments by proficiency. So we initially target this and filter this down just to that warning group. If, however, you want to expand, you're welcome to do so. And again, those settings will be savable at some point down the line. That's the initial offering on assessments. There's going to be, I believe, a few more that we're looking to put into this that might summarize that data in a somewhat different way. But that's where we're at for 2303. Before I move into the classroom performance side, I want to take a quick look over at Soapbox and see what questions may be coming in.
Matthew, I'm going to jump in while you're doing that. one thing, and it's really bad when I have to say I've already said something wrong and we're this early in the presentation, but I said earlier that the districts would have access to it tomorrow. Actually, the release goes in tomorrow night, so they'll have access to it on Thursday. So I just wanted to correct that. The other thing I wanted to mention with the assessment visualizations is that, normally when you get to see your assessment visualizations and state provides something, it's only at state assessments. This is going to show any assessments that have been loaded to campus. So if you have loaded your MAP test, or if you've loaded any test locally to campus and they're in their assessment module, they'll be available through these views. It's not just state assessments. What you're seeing right now is sample data, and it's not even Kentucky specific, but you will see and you will drive how that looks based on what data you've loaded into the system. Whatever the score, whatever the test might be. So we did have a question about permissions and what would be needed to access the dashboard. And I was getting ready to type a response, but I think what everybody's going to like is that you can give this access to the system to many more people than what our other Tableau environment allows for. So in the permission driven, and what they have access is driven by the permissions they already have in campus. But I'll turn that over to you because Matthew, you can probably say it in a way everybody's going to understand a lot better than I can.
Yeah, definitely. So as Dee Dee mentioned, this is a tool that's available to any user within your district if you wish to give them access to it. So that's going to be a school by school administrator level choice for which groups you provide access to this set of reports, just like any other pre-canned reports. It's in the campus tool list under Insights. By default, the only folks who have this out of the box are your administrators. So people who have full campus rights. It does come in turned off, but all you have to do to grant access is go to your user group configuration for whichever groups of users you want to add to this, and just give them read access to Insights, and it's going to turn this on for them. There's no additional cost or licensing or anything like that based on how many users you put into this. And this data is truly read-only, which means they can't break this, if you will. They can't change assessment scores. They can't change in progress grades. They can only view and report upon them. So I'll let your districts decide where the line is on who has access to what data and what level of student privacy, because both of these will expose student PII in the detail view. So if that's of concern, kind of treat that the way you will within your own district config. But we don't mandate that. Initially, it all comes in turned off so that you can make those decisions, but it is as simple as granting tools rights to this module and any of the tools within it. There's a clarification question that came in too about the data in this program only comes from the assessment module in Infinite Campus. Yep, that is 100% correct. This isn't pulling data from outside of our system. It's only what campus can see under assessments and what you would find on the student's assessment tab within Student Info General.
I think
right,
that's got the questions for the assessment piece. If you want to move on.
Perfect.
Thanks.
So then let's talk about the other grouping. The other grouping is a little bit easier probably to understand. This one's going to be two different sets of data that look at very similar data points, and then one kind of clever, unique version of looking at that data as well. So the other 7 visualizations that we're offering as part of this release are related to student grades and student progress or classroom performance, which is what the topic area of this section is. So the first set that we're going to look at then are the in-progress grades visualizations. Now, this is going to go into your teacher's gradebook and look at the calculated in-progress grade for the student. Those of you who haven't seen on the gradebook side or haven't looked at that in quite some time, there are 2 different sets of grades for any student in any classroom. There's in-progress grades, which is based on the assignments, tests, and everything else. It's calculating up for a particular task or standard. And then there's the posted grade. Posted is going to be the thing that actually shows up on the report card. Now, in most cases, those are the same, meaning the values that the system calculates based on the gradebook config will then become what shows up on the report card. That's not always 100% true. There are classrooms where teachers have some levity to make some adjustments to that, to do things like extra credit and build some of those things in to augment a student's grade where posted might not match in progress. The basics of this, though, are the in progress grade is a live calculation based on the evidence that's happening in the classroom. Posted is what goes on the report card. So when you're looking at in progress visualizations, that's going to look at teacher's gradebook regardless of whether they've submitted their grades to the office yet. So if we're early in the school year and we have work that's already being assessed for these students that we already know are at risk, we can keep up on that and view how that's impacting their grades long before this gets to the point where it's been reported on and we can't make adjustments to it. Within those in progress calculations, then, we grouped it in 3 different ways for you based on how you want to ingest that information. So there's progress by course. That's going to take all the information that it knows, and it's going to compress it based on course number and name. So we can say within AP Algebra, how are my students doing that have taken that course? And within that, you'll be able to choose whether you're counting the students who've received a grade or how many grades they've received. I'll show you that once we get in. It just modifies the data a little bit. If you wish, you can also switch that to progress by student. That's kind of like looking at the student's report card in a visualization, or we can view progress by teacher. So it's 3 different questions that you're asking with this. We're asking, how are our students doing within a course? How are the students doing across all of the courses they're taking? Or what teachers are reaching students in different ways? So where are there maybe teachers who have a lot of students who are struggling that we want to get some additional help in their classroom to work specifically with those kids? Or are there teachers who are reaching those kids at a extremely high level? We want to see what they're doing and get a feel for how that score is coming to be. So that's the in progress grading for classroom performance. The other side of that coin, pretty easy to understand, is posted grades. So posted is basically looking at the student's report card. So the thing that gets sent home to mom and dad, the thing that shows up on the portal as the final grade for a specific term, task, and standard, and lets you allow or interpret that data in a visualization. And I'll show you how that looks here. There is, in my demo site, a little bit of a bug that I introduced last night, apparently, as we were tweaking some other things that you won't see in the release. It's just going to impact my demo a bit related to posted grades. So don't get thrown off when we get there. I have to make a little adjustment because I kind of broke it last night. Sorry about that. Now, with any of this, there's always then an issue that comes up, specifically if your district or school is dealing with a very complex score group. So if you're on a 100-point scale where you don't have A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus, but you have A100, A99, A98, A97, A96, and so on, these visualizations are going to struggle a little bit because they try to count how many students have a 100-point A, how many students have a 99-point A, how many students have a 97-point A. And they go through and they give you this very complicated graph because it doesn't understand that all of those items can be compressed and viewed as one thing. It can't categorize or summarize things in that way. This is a fairly common issue that runs across our districts. Even when you're looking at fairly simple score groups like A plus, A minus, there's not an easy way to say how many students have A's, right? That's not a thing that visualizations understand. To try to address that, we're introducing a report known as the percent tier report. This is the visualization version of what used to be called grade analysis under data analytics. And what it does is it takes the students and it reinterprets their grades by recalculating a grouping on percent. Now, it's going to try to do this based on the posted percent if there is one. So if grades have been submitted to the report card, it's using that percentage to calculate where the student fell. If there isn't a posted percent, if it only has the in progress information to work on, it'll use that instead. So it's going to first prioritize posted, and then it will fall back to in progress. And what it's going to do then is take the students and it's going to group them based on a tier. And those tiering levels look like this. So students who have scored over 90%, which is going to be your A range for most schools. Students in the 80 to 90% range, the 70 to 80%, 65 to 70, and then below 65 or 0 to 64%. This allows it to normalize, to take that wide variety of scores that it might have and compress it into essentially 5 tiers that allow you to then view those students in a more visual way. I'm going to show you what that looks like in the interest of time here. I know I'm getting pretty close. And I want to make sure that there's time for questions. So 1 second. So I'm going to pull these up and I'm going to start with the in progress ones because those are the ones that I didn't break last night. So the system's going to come up and calculate it. There is a performance issue with this particular visualization that we're working on. So this is a momentary slowdown that will be going away as we continue to refine and continue to work with these. So this small loading time that you have here is not something that you'll experience normally. It's a little bit worse even in my demo site because the site that I'm working with. There she goes. So this visualization, I mean, obviously by default, it's going to be a little bit rough because it's looking at students who do not have an in progress grade. So classes where there is not at least one calculated score. But what this lets me do is it lets me select a particular score that I'm looking at and find the count of grades that have been received in my courses towards that score. Now, initially, this is looking at everything. It's looking at every term, every task within the system. You do have the ability to filter that down. So I can go through and say, I only want to look at term 2 or term 4, just look at my last quarter of grades. I could also say that I only want to look at a specific task. So if I'm only really interested in the semester grading task and my sample site's a little bit crazy, I could do that. And now it's going to just be looking at the students for their Q4 semester and what counts do we have in the system for that. So targeted to just that particular data. Now this grid initially presents in a pie chart. I know that not everybody likes pie charts. It was the default option that we decided to go with. You're welcome to change that as well. Stacked column is one that works fairly well once you're comfortable with it. I would suggest if you do that to also go in and remove the blank scores. So this is going to show the course and it shows the different grades that have been received for the student. And you can see even with my fairly small amount of options, these visualizations are kind of tricky to look at because it's separating A from A minus from A plus. It sees those as 3 distinct objects to count students for. To normalize that, we would use the percent tier. Now, switching between different visualizations in the system, you can either go back to Insights, or if you're in New Look, you can use this little related tools menu to jump directly between these. We're going to do that, and we'll load up percent tier. So see, this one's a bit more performant. So this is one that we've already optimized. What this is doing then is it's reinterpreting those students based on that newer grouping. So it's going through and saying, okay, how many students are in here who have over 90%? How many are in that 80 to 90, the 70 to 80, et cetera? And this allows me then to filter and go based on that tier. So if I wanted to, I could say, you know what, I'm really only interested in the students who are kind of struggling. So let's look at the students from 0 to 64 and 65 to 70. So now I can see what courses I have students who are struggling in. Pretty simple. This is count of grades, so it's looking across all grading tests and terms. If I want to, I can also switch that to count of students, and my numbers will tweak slightly and adjust. So now it's counting how many students are struggling in each of those groups. You have the same options for switching these to different visuals if there are different ways of looking at this data that fit your particular approach better. So you have some choices with that. Every time you reload this, it is going to reset to its default options. But again, you will have the ability to save that or save those choices later as we continue to refine and build these out. Now, this particular report has an interesting thing in it that we may divide based on feedback. And it's a question that we have for you all, actually. When you look at the progress reports in the posted, we subdivided those at the tool level by course, student, and teacher. The percent tier has the same ability to view this data by course, student, and teacher, but it does it from within the report. So within the system, you can choose to say, okay, I'm looking at it by course. I want to see this by teacher instead. And it will switch it real time, saving all of your configuration options that you had for the report as a whole and just changing how it counts the data. So the benefit of doing it this way is you have the ability to have that one set of choices that you make within your filters and quickly switch between different ways of looking at those choices. The negative to it is every time you come back, it's going to reset to kind of the core option, and it's easier to get a little bit lost in this as far as which view you're in. So that's an open question. As you start working with this and as you start looking at this, we'd love to hear your feedback on which approach you prefer. Just pop that into the campus forums. There's an entire section for early warning where we're kind of be looking for these comments to come back in. This is wildly new. Nobody really has worked with this report yet. So we're expecting to get kind of a spread of different interpretations of how well this meets the goal of what we're looking for. All right, I know I have about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we address any questions we've got. I have a link up here to the campus community. It's just community.infinitecampus.com. If you're a campus user, you should have access to this. Within that, there's a forums link in the upper left-hand corner. And then under forums, there's one specifically for early warning. Pop a thread in there if you have comments or questions about anything with these visualizations. That goes directly to me and to my development team. So we'll be watching for those and can respond in kind as we go. And that'll also help us to guide where this product is going to go as we keep developing it. So we've got about 3 minutes left. I'm just going to take a glance at the questions here on my side. Dee Dee, if you have anything you'd like to add as well while I do that.
Now, if you want to pick ones you feel like you could respond to in the 3 minutes, go right ahead. This is different than the Tableau visualizations that we have available through campus, and we'll have a session on that later this morning. So you stay tuned for more information on that.
All right, so I'll address a couple of these in line. So there was a question here about, can we print lists of students from these reports based off our filters? The answer to that is yes, with a small asterisk. You can export these lists. So any of these reports or visualizations that you have an export option to directly print it or to send it to CSV, Excel, or PDF. So you can take this information out of the system. If you're looking for specific students, you can do that from, I believe, the sub-report being displayed. It'll allow that to export. You can also go into something called the grid, which allows you to see those students in the groupings. And that will allow you to export that as well into just a raw data spreadsheet if you're looking to pull that. So yes, you can pull this information out of the system. Let's see. There's a question here. If someone has read writes only, can they still change the filter options? Yes, they absolutely can, because they're changing it within their current view of that filter. So read allows them to get to the report, but they have full control over the report once they're in it. Those options cannot be saved currently, but that is coming. The percent tier is found under Insights. So it's going to be under Insights Classroom Performance, and it's right at the top. You cannot currently modify the percents in the tiers, meaning the tiers are hard-coded in the way that it's configured. That was a necessity for the way it's built. If, however, that is missing the mark for what you're looking for, pop a comment into the forum about that, about what you wish the tiers would be. If it's like, oh, why is it this? It should be 0 to 70, or we should have below 50% because we use it for X, Y, and Z. Let us know, and we can take that under advisement on something that we can potentially modify in the system. To see in progress grade data and insights to the grading tasks in the grade calc options have to be set as in progress. Yes. So setting the grading to, well, yes, if it's a traditional grading task, not necessarily if it's a standard. So if you're doing a standards-based course and you're grading on rubrics and calculating through mode, method, that kind of thing, I believe that will show in here, but I would have to test it. If it's a traditional grading task, a points-based grading task, it does have to be set to calculate an in-progress grade in order for our system to pull that, because it uses the math out of the teacher's gradebook. So it relies on that math being turned on and enabled for our visualization to consume it.
All right, probably time for one more.
Yep, I'd say the last one then that I'll say is there's a question here. Is it possible to limit the groupings of students with ad hocs so that counselors can go to specific groups that they work with? In the initial version of these, no. However, the dashboard view, the intent of the dashboard is to allow these visualizations to be shown on one screen, and then the dashboard itself to be filtered to a group, to an ad hoc. So you'll be able to say, I want to show in progress grades and attendance data and behavior and whatever, and then take the whole dashboard and limit it down to an ad hoc that's targeting specific groupings of students. It will then join that to the at-risk kids from that grouping and display that information for you. So eventually, yes. Currently, no, is my answer to can you limit this to a group of ad hocs? And I believe, Dee Dee, that takes me almost to within 3 seconds of the end of my time. So
That's awesome. You did great. We appreciate all this information. Excited to be able to get in there and see this. And, we really welcome feedback both from Infinite Campus as well as the KDE standpoint on your thoughts on this, because it is brand new. It's something that we felt like we continue to try to find ways of maximizing the use of data. We're great collectors of data, but sometimes we're not really good users of data. And these kind of tools allow for data to become actionable, and that's what we want, towards helping students.